Jay Thunder, the black sheep of WWE, a flying Farron fan fiction. Part 1, The Burning Beginning, March 20th, 1994 to June 27th, 2004. Chapter 1, Jay Ferro's Upbringing, March 20th, 1994 to July 17th, 2001. Life for Jay Thunder Ferro began as he'd come to know it one fateful evening, March 20th, 1994. The youngest of a Midwestern family of 4, Jay's dad and older brother were inconsistent as WWF fans but decided to purchase WrestleMania 10 on a whim for the night, live on pay-per-view. Instantly, Jay was captivated by the pomp and circumstance juxtaposed with testosterone-driven action that mixed together to form the theatrical production of professional wrestling. Witnessing Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon warring over the Intercontinental Championship in WWF's first ever televised ladder match inspired a lifetime of adoration for the flamboyance and athleticism of the Heartbreak Kid. At the age of 9 years old, a young Jay Ferro was hooked on the World Wrestling Federation. Born July 18, 1984 in the Yakima Valley of Washington State, but relocated to Omaha, Nebraska before the age of 2, Jay grew up and delved into a WWF fandom as his creative mind simultaneously blossomed and took identity. Latching on initially to the relatively average-sized, quick-footed in-ring technicians like the aforementioned Shawn Michaels, as well as new WWF champion Bret Hart starting his second reign, Jay would feel an equal sense of awe toward disturbing horror-like anti-heroes such as The Undertaker and Mankind 2 ahead of WWF's transition into their Attitude Era. Said WWF boom period in its late 90s Crash TV infamy entered full swing just as Jay Ferro entered his teens. Wrestling's hottest new monster Kane, cool rebellious factions like DX, The Brood, and Team Extreme, and mainstream megastars The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin being all the rage through Jay's high school years back in his Washington State birthplace, his parents and him moving back there the summer Jay turned 14. Outside of his WWF fandom, Jay Ferro in high school developed and pursued other interests and passions, both athletic and artistic. Most obviously, he wrestled for his schools, both Monroe Middle School in Omaha and Eisenhower High School in Yakima, but beyond that, he made high school teams for volleyball and basketball, and in his own time developed a love for skateboarding too. As Jay developed and owned his creative talents though, that's where he truly felt the happiest and most fulfilled. Whether writing thriller-inspired stories, scribbling together comedic comics, recording original music, or working on thoughtful and abstract drawings, Jay felt most at home imagining up tales to tell, creating meaningful and moving art, and all around entertaining any audience he could muster. As Jay got older and considered all options for what to pursue in adulthood and what to make of his life, one option stood out more than any other. Nothing else could marry Jay's athletic and artistic sides together as well as the theatrical, fantastical, scripted world of pro wrestling. By 2001, as WWF's Attitude Era began running out of steam and transitioning into what would be WWE's Ruthless Aggression Era, name change and all, Jay Ferro in the spring before his 17th birthday set his mind on becoming a part of the traveling circus of pro wrestling. Seeing potential in making a star out of himself and expressing both his creative and athletic gifts to their fullest, Jay would begin ramping up his training and exercises to get himself in the best shape possible entering adulthood. At the very least, if nothing else comes of it, with wrestling season of Jay's junior year wrapped up and 6 months till it'll begin again for his senior year, he'll be in the best shape of his life for his final year wrestling as an Ike cadet. In the end, though, come Jay's 17th birthday, the extravagant journey his life would forge was set into motion. One act would send the young Jay Ferro into the fate he was meant for, into a realm where your perceived success and the strength of your legacy all boil down to how it is written by the powers that be. To a fictional world of fantasy competition and larger-than-life characters Jay would commit, where his life could best be authored, witnessed, recorded, and remembered. Chapter 2, Jay Ferro into Adulthood, July 18, 2001 to September 23, 2002. In the summer of 2001, Jay Ferro, on his 17th birthday, submitted an application online through the Contact Us page on WWF.com, along with home video and tangible credentials from his high school wrestling career, and a recording of himself cutting a promo in character as long-lost third Hardy brother, Sean Hardy, combining the names of his favorites as a fan, Shawn Michaels and the Hardy Boys, to showcase his passion for entertaining and hope for getting into the business. As the weeks went by afterward, and with nothing returning in the mail for Jay Ferro, he, now a licensed driver, would get his parents' consent to sign up for a local wrestling school held in a gym in Seattle. So long as Jay could drive himself to weekend classes without harming his school schedule, train hard and diligently to get his parents his money's worth, and remain uninjured so his parents won't have to worry, Jay was free to attend starting in August 2001. 1 year passed and a lot had changed. Pushing through the seismic chaos of 9/11 to never miss an available class of his wrestling school, Jay Ferro graduated and reached the age of 18, entering adulthood. With that came a move from his parents' home in Yakima to an apartment in Seattle suburb Renton, which he'd take up with high school best friend Eddie. For the brief time he'd be there, Jay would use income earned from Walmart to split between rent and wrestling school, which, now that he was living within half an hour from his gym, he took the opportunity to add even more class dates a week to his training schedule. Only a month after moving there, though, and not even fully unpacked yet, WWF, now renamed WWE thanks to naming disputes with the World Wildlife Fund, decided to act on Jay's application he sent the year prior and attempted to get a hold of the bright young man. Approaching the end of August 2002, a member of WWE Talent Relations called the home phone of Jay Ferro's parents, that being the contact phone number left on Jay's application at the time. After receiving an update to Jay's contact information and address, head of talent relations and legendary WWE commentator Jim Ross himself called Jay's phone in Renton, and Jay could not believe the voice he heard talking to him. Here was the deal. After giving a brief phone interview to review Jay's resume, inquiring about his amateur accolades and which school he was currently training with, his passion and knowledge of pro wrestling despite him not progressing fully into it yet, and any other updates WWE as a company would need to know, Jim Ross arranged to send a member of his staff to Jay's Seattle gym to scout him out undercover for a week and evaluate his performance while training and sparring. Should JR's guy return to him with a flying colors report card, Jim Ross would proceed with offering Jay Ferro a contract to sign him to one of several partner developmental promotions in return. Realizing his chance to capture his dream was then, Jay could not agree to the deal any quicker than he did, leaping at the chance. Over the next few weeks, JR's undercover talent scout traveled to Seattle, studied Jay Ferro's training and his dedication to it, and reported his observations back to WWE HQ. The determination was that Jay showed incredible heart and potential both athletically and creatively, and he naturally possessed a humble, relatable, everyman sense of charisma which WWE could use to establish connections with their young millennial fan base just coming of age to get into WWE and become lifelong fans. Jay Ferro has that potential to strongly connect, especially with the whole new generation of young WWE fans, and that's something that WWE decided would be best to capitalize on. By Monday, September 23, 2002, Jay Ferro received a form in the mail from WWE recruiting him to a developmental promotion of his choosing. All he needed to do was check the box next to his preferred location, pack up everything he wanted to take with him, and meet with talent relations who'd have an introductory contract waiting for him to sign at his selected facility. Excited to be so lucky for his dream to come true so soon and with such minimal experience too, Jay checked the box selecting the HWA, Heartland Wrestling Association, located in Cincinnati, Ohio, and set off into his fated life as a professional entertainer. Chapter 3. Jay Ferro's Foot in the Door. September 30th, 2002 to December 31st, 2003. Reporting into the HWA facility in Cincinnati on September 30th, 2002, ready to meet and greet and continue his training, Jay would settle into his new home, literally at first, as until he could find and afford a new apartment to crash in on such short notice, Jay Ferro was allotted a corner of the locker room to keep his sleeping bag in instead. Jim Ross, when assigning a head trainer for Jay Ferro and assessing who else may be on hand to provide additional mentoring, considered who Jay has come off as being the best fit for. Jay was joining up at 18 years old with no real professional experience and not particularly possessing a physique that WWE would typically like to see. He was hired instead for his heart and passion as a fan of pro wrestling, diligence as a worker, and relatability as a millennial. JR would need no less than the best hands to mold his completely unknown, unproven gamble of a hire into the star he's meant to be. Meeting Jay Ferro on his first day training for HWA in 2002 was none other than legendary technician Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who retired in 1994 after 2 decades of pure wrestling wizardry. Joining the Dragon, at least until Jay'd be acclimated and settled in, were 2 of Jay's childhood heroes, the Showstopper Shawn Michaels, who was spending a couple of months off TV to sell a beatdown from Triple H ahead of the Survivor Series comeback, and the hardcore legend Mick Foley, who just entered a phase of retirement the previous year, ready to move on from his wrestling personas and hang up the Mankind mask for good. With this trio of icons heading up Jay Ferro's development, he had the guidance he needed to fast-track his rise through the rookie ranks. With that, his training was intense and grueling through his first couple of months, a lot more than it was at his Seattle gym before, but it was rewarding and worth it, knowing the potential WWE saw in him, wanting nothing more than to live up to it or even surpass it. And Jay understood fully that all the pain and exhaustion from training is just the price that's paid for an aspiring hopeful pro wrestler to achieve their dreams as a star. All testing and reports sent back from Ricky Steamboat to Jim Ross about Jay Ferro's progress exceeded even JR's expectations, and by the time Shawn Michaels was needed to rejoin WWE's travel schedule ahead of Survivor Series 2002, and Mick Foley was ready to return home from Ohio, Jay was well enough off both personally, finally able to set up a studio apartment in Cincinnati for himself away from the HWA facility, and in wrestling, officially debuting in front of HWA's local audience for his first run of official matches in professional company. Here, in front of HWA's local fans and cameras, Jay Ferro performed as the Burning Jay Ferro. In promos, he was able to establish his character, putting over a burning desire as a babyface to compete and rise to the top of HWA like a phoenix. He wasn't booked to win every match, but he did win against other rookies more often than not, Jay Ferro being the one that WWE Talent Relations had the closest, most invested eye on in HWA at the time. Care was taken not to make Jay Ferro come off as unrealistically unbeatable or untouchable though, as keeping him and his persona vulnerable as an underdog was key to his development and to establishing a supportive fan base. For the matches he did win, the Burning Jay Ferro would do so in a way that made him look like a scrappy survivor, not a dominant warrior. Carrying on from his WWE application the previous year where he cut a promo from home portraying a third Hardy brother, Jay Ferro in HWA as The Burning still paid homage pretty heavily to Matt and Jeff. Wrestling in long cargo pants of various colors, all airbrushed with The Burning down the left leg in the graffiti-like font, a thick leather belt to keep them secured, topless with elbow pads and athletic gloves over his hands, standard black wrestling boots, and with his long shaggy hair dyed a fiery burning red, Jay Ferro has always put great importance on being able to express himself through his style and appearance. Outside of the ring, whether being shown backstage or making an entrance, Jay Ferro further expanded upon his character by drawing additional inspiration from an interest in the X-Men. With 2 of his favorite mutant heroes in mind, Jay integrated the slick, agile mannerisms of Nightcrawler and the attitude, trench coat, and playing card motif of Gambit into his burning persona. Behind the scenes all the while heading into the new year of 2003, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat ramped the intensity of Jay's training up to the next level, pushing him to rise beyond the performance of a simple rookie and challenging him harder to prove why he deserved the attention of a company like WWE. Every step of the way, Jay kept up. The fire in his heart was lit and burning strong and won't rest until he's achieved his sports entertainer dreams. Jay Ferro, while still holding true to his own unique style and identity, passed every test and advanced to that skill level where Ricky Steamboat was sure WWE would find a place on their roster for the bright young man from Washington. He was developing the total package of ring ability, creativity, sense of character, and crowd charisma all to an exceptional level. Jay was a natural, and the Phoenix was taking flight. Jay could never allow himself to be another generic wrestler in a crowd of generic rookies. He was here to command attention, innovate, and leave his mark. More and more WWE higher-ups were starting to notice Jay's performance, backing up the good words being spread freely by his early mentors Shawn Michaels and Mick Foley. The high-intensity training and performing for HWA continued through the following spring, and by WrestleMania 19 in Seattle, Washington at the end of March 2003, Jay Ferro was amongst a larger group of rookies backstage to experience and witness the show. Afterward, when it was time to head out, Ricky Steamboat met with his student to inform him they're clear to ease back on Jay's training because WWE Talent Relations saw him as main roster ready as is, in terms of talent and charisma that is, but not in terms of experience yet. WWE wanted Jay Ferro to grind away in HWA for another year and really refine his craft, and hopefully by this time next year, WWE will have a spot ready for him. So back to work Jay Ferro went, his presence in HWA growing larger and more frequent under the continued, more passive guidance of Steamboat now. As he was on the rise from mid-Carter and on the cusp of pushing into the main event picture of his rookie promotion, Jay Ferro would meet a couple other superstars he'd consider mentors as they, in their off times, made rounds to meet and welcome new talent, Trish Stratus and Billy Kidman. As these two, visiting and working with Jay separately, took notice of the rookie and decided to lend him their guidance and experience, Jay'd find that the teachings they had to offer were exactly the pieces he was still missing from his own game. With Trish Stratus, Jay Ferro learned how to channel his already natural charisma into the attitude of a true WWE superstar. The recently 4-time women's champion crash-coursed Jay on everything from using body language to communicate his character non-verbally, to acting up for the crowd and commanding the reactions his storylines need, to milking the cameras that'll be on him in every arena 24/7 for all that they're worth. Meanwhile, with the 7-time Cruiserweight champion Billy Kidman, Jay Ferro trained his speed, agility, high-flying ability, all things that could be drilled with him by any other trainer, but one aspect not yet refined with anyone else pre-Kidman was the ability to just throw caution to the wind and possess the fearlessness needed to live in the moment and execute the crazy stunts top WWE stars will need to be able to perform. The burning Jay Ferro possessing the total package in terms of his training now, HWA pushed him into their main event heavyweight championship scene leading into the summer of 2003. Performing more brilliantly than ever, mixing it up with former champions Matt Striker and Cody Hawk en route to beating them both in a triple threat to earn a title shot against champion Chad Collier, pinning Matt Striker to do so. Jay Ferro, in fact, defeated Chad Collier to win his first ever wrestling championship, the HWA Heavyweight Championship, on May 2nd, 2003, at a show in Aurora, Indiana, away from HWA's home facility. After establishing his first title reign with a subsequent win or two, the Burning One entered a feud with Cody Hawk, a rival he overcame back in the triple threat that earned his title shot in the first place. As their renewed rivalry grew more intense and heated, they found themselves booked into a 4th of July street fight with the title on the line, and after having been HWA Heavyweight Champion for 2 months, Jay Ferro lost to Cody Hawk after taking a worked Roman candle shot to the face. Returning after 2 weeks and winning the title right back, however, the burning Jay Ferro would reign for a second time as HWA Heavyweight Champion for an additional 2 months, scoring a few more successful defenses along the way until losing it for the second and last time to Nigel McGuinness on September 6, 2003. Through the rest of the year, Jay Ferro just kept on grinding, both in the HWA ring and outside of it during his continued training with Ricky Steamboat, which was really more of a formality by this point. On October 27, 2003, WWE's SmackDown Here Comes the Pain video game was released and a character for Jay Ferro was included, named simply by the Burning nickname. Developed by Ukes and published by THQ, the former two-time HWA heavyweight champion made it into the game, along with a group of other contracted developmental hopefuls amongst a hidden roster of unlockable by code characters. Following this, Jay Ferro would be included in every main series yearly WWE game, at least until his retirement would come roughly 3 decades later. Naturally, making the cut for Here Comes the Pain in his rookie year, despite being a hidden unlockable character, exposed him to a new audience of WWE fans who discovered him prior to his actual WWE debut, giving him just a taste of the fandom and support yet to come for the bright young star. As 2003 came to its close and Jay wrestled his final matches for HWA and finished his training classes with Ricky Steamboat for the year, the future burned the hottest and brightest it ever had for the burning Jay Ferro, like a phoenix soaring straight into the sun. Chapter 4, The Hunt Begins, January 1st, 2004 to March 15th, 2004. Moving into the new year of Jay Ferro's WWE debut, HWA was readying to push their main eventer up into pastures new. On January 6th, Nigel McGuinness won back the HWA Heavyweight Championship after dropping it just the weekend prior, now a 2-time champion just as the Burning One was. From there, that led to Nigel instigating a feud with the man he won his first title reign from, the Burning Jay Ferro, driven only to prove his dominance and superiority as the better 2-time champion. As this renewed feud intensified and challenges were made, it ultimately led to HWA booking a Loser Leaves HWA title match between Nigel and Jay Ferro for a show on January 24th, the build to which being capped off with an obligatorily violent contract signing. That Saturday came, and Nigel McGuinness proved himself superior, snuffing out his burning rival for good. Nigel retained his HWA Heavyweight Championship, and the Burning One faced the fate of his run in his developmental promotion coming to an end. In reality, coinciding with Jay Ferro being made to wrap up with HWA, he was also invited to join WWE over Royal Rumble weekend, as he did as part of a larger group for WrestleMania 19 last year, to mingle in the locker room, enjoy the show from backstage, and meet with WWE management afterward to discuss his future in the business. Jay Ferro, within said invite from Jim Ross, was informed that arrangements had been made for him to meet Vince McMahon for the first time, and to bring his ring gear and any other personal belongings he'd want with him on the road, because he won't have a chance to return back to Ohio for a while. Before Jay left, he packed up everything that meant anything to him and informed his apartment landlord that he wouldn't be returning for any furniture left behind, and off he went, never to call Cincinnati home again. Sunday night, January 25th, 2004 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, after Chris Benoit last eliminated Big Show to win the Royal Rumble match and celebrations were had both in the ring on camera and in gorilla position backstage, Mick Foley approached Jay Ferro, telling him, "The boss wants to see you. Hope it's good." Foley guided Jay over to a side room beside Gorilla, wishing him luck and sating his pride in Jay before sending him in on his own, Mick dismissing himself, still needing to congratulate Chris Benoit for his victory. Inside, awaiting him in the makeshift office, was Head of Talent Relations Jim Ross, stars from the Monday Night Raw roster who were involved in Jay's training, Shawn Michaels and Trish Stratus, and the patriarch of WWE himself, Vince McMahon. Having already been clued in ahead of time on the etiquette of Vince McMahon, Jay pushed his nerves down and approached the boss courageously, initiating a strong, firm handshake. "A handshake," McMahon barked. "I like the kid already," while Shawn Michaels concurred on behalf of his student. Getting straight to business, Vince addressed Jay, telling him, "So let me tell you why you're here, Jay. Since Jim Ross hired you, and Shawn and Trish both helped Steamboat periodically in training you, the three of them just haven't stopped singing your praises. They say they see potential in you. They say you've got a great sense of talent, creativity, and connectivity with the crowd. But you understand, what they say to me means nothing until I see it for myself, right?" Trying his best not to let the mask hiding his nerves crack, knowing any sign of weakness would ruin the boss's view of him, Jay deeply swallowed and agreed that he understood Vince McMahon. Graciously, he continued, saying, "That's why I want you on, traveling with the Raw roster so I can see you for myself." Sean and Trish tell me they're both willing to work with you to bring you onto the show, and as it happens, creative needs something for the two of them leading into the summer after WrestleMania, so I will have them write your debut storyline for Monday Night Raw, working with Shawn Michaels and Trish Stratus, if I see you prove yourself and live up to your reputation. In the meantime, as soon as tomorrow, I want you wrestling on Heat and weekend house shows, and if you prove you can keep up with the schedule and that you're worth all the hype I hear from some of my closest associates here, I'll have a main roster contract and character ready for you. Do we have a deal? Indeed, a deal they had. JR, Trish, and Sean all congratulated and welcomed their new colleague Jay Ferro into the WWE family, proud of him that he'd made it this far and earned his chance to make it big. From here, Jay moved on with his night, eager to move into his new Monday Night Raw home. Through February and into March, Jay upheld his end of the deal, traveling to each show Jim Ross scheduled him for, often in carpools, and putting on the best performances of his career thus far. Under the watchful, judgmental eye of Vince McMahon, the burning Jay Ferro lived up to his trainer's hype, wrestling competitive losses on Sunday Night Heat against Raw mid-carders Christian, Test, and Tajiri, but then losing and then scoring his first WWE show win against La Resistance's Rene Dupree, going 1-for-1. On house shows, the Burning One faced main event level talent, but merely as a squash match opponent. Taking beatings and losses from Kane as well as Evolution's Batista, Randy Orton, and Ric Flair, Jay was spending time in the ring with some of WWE's biggest stars nonetheless. In occasional tag matches against said Evolution members, WWE recruited Jay's favorite HWA rival Cody Hawk on an uncontracted per-appearance basis to team with The Burning and join in on jobbing to Raw's main event heel faction too. By March 1st, 2004, 2 weeks before WrestleMania 20, prior to that evening's Sunday Night Heat taping, time came for Jay Ferro's moment of truth. Meeting again with Vince McMahon, Jim Ross, Shawn Michaels, and Trish Stratus, Jay received the news that set in stone his current career path and life itself forever. Jay Ferro, at 19 years old, received his first WWE main roster contract. For the next 4 years, debuting on the Raw after Mania 20, WWE would have Jay Ferro locked in as their newest, youngest, hottest masked mercenary, Sean the Manhunter. Jay being given that name since he introduced himself as Sean Hardy in the application promo he sent in 3 years ago. Trish Stratus, taking a step back from her own in-ring competition to manage the Manhunter, initially at least, would act as director for her hired hitman. The executioner-like Manhunter himself is cold, calculating, and sadistic, as he is a vicious attack dog loyal to Trish, obeying her every command. WWE creative drew inspiration for Jay Ferro's character from the unhinged psychopathy of Mankind, the stoic and imposing aura of a monster like Kane, and the in-ring smarts, cunning, and agility of peers like Edge, Christian, and the Hardys, who always think of ways to outmaneuver and get creative with how they cause damage to their opponents. Shawn Michaels would be the Manhunter's first victim on Raw the night after WrestleMania 20 in a wrong place, wrong time situation, HBK being a top-level target for Jay's persona to make an immediate impact off of, which will kick off a feud between them that'll lead into the summer. Where Vince's creative team would take the Manhunter character from there would be determined based on crowd and critic reception, but for now, everything was set and in place for Jay Ferro's start on Monday Night Raw. Jay couldn't possibly be happier, as all it took to make his dream come true was a signature on the contract in front of him. He signed, and that was it. Jay Ferro was a made man in WWE, and he was ready to let the star in his entertainer heart shine as bright as it possibly could. With the deal made and celebrated by the others in the room with Jay, Vince soon ushered his newest employee out of the office to move on with other business regarding that night's episode of Raw, but not without first bestowing his newfound recruit a travel case containing the most crucial piece of his new Manhunter persona, the Manhunter's mask. Covering Jay's face with black leather that would fasten at the back of his head via 4-stitched leather straps, the mask made for Sean the Manhunter was designed to be as iconic as it is unnerving and horrific. Open vertical slits over the mouth of the mask would allow Jay extra room to breathe while maintaining the intimidating, threatening, and dangerous air of the unstable man wearing it. Meanwhile, the smoother, more neutral curvature around the eyes, as opposed to anything more overtly hostile and aggressive, added an equally important sense of stoic emotionlessness to his loose cannon unpredictability. Jay Ferro, a big gamer in between training sessions, travel, and wrestling appearances, had already found love for the psychological horror of the Silent Hill series, and from the same fear he felt for the second Game Zone's Silent Punisher Pyramid Head, Jay was confident he could channel the same energy into this new wrestling character he could call his. Over the last couple of weeks before his Raw arrival, Jay Ferro stayed busy wrestling on Heat and house shows, tag teaming with Cody Hawk again to lose against the Dudley Boys while scoring one final win on Heat over Matt Hardy to send his burning persona riding off into the sunset. Then Jay got to enjoy watching WrestleMania 20 live backstage with his new family of colleagues until it was time, on the Raw after, March 15th, 2004, for the Manhunter to debut. March 15th, 2004, Raw, East Rutherford, New Jersey, USA. On that fateful night in East Rutherford, New Jersey, 2 hours of Raw wrapped up with a main event handicap match pitting new World Heavyweight Champion Chris Benoit and impromptu partner Shawn Michaels against the three of Evolution's Batista, Randy Orton, and Ric Flair. Throughout the night, commentators Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, as well as backstage broadcast staff, hinted at witnessing a hooded/masked man they've never seen before loitering around, unknowing of his identity or why he's here, but dismissing it as probably not being anything significant. Until this point, though, whoever it was has yet to reveal himself. The night's main event ended controversially when vengeful former champion Triple H interfered to attack Chris Benoit, hoping to make the man who took his title last night pay. Disregarding their subsequent disqualification loss, Evolution joined their leader in the chaos, looking for satisfaction and leaving their enemies lying. Benoit withdrew from the ring, baiting Triple H to chase after him, Randy and Ric Flair pursuing too to back up the game in the event he'd catch the rabid Wolverine, but inconclusively they disappear backstage, not to be seen again tonight. Still in the ring, though, was Shawn Michaels doing his best to defend himself from Batista, but Shawn Michaels had just endured a hellacious triple threat WrestleMania main event the night before, so he was far from any shape to successfully fight the animal off. He was helpless, falling victim to 2 Batista bombs before the animal felt satisfied enough to leave, but before Batista was even fully up the ramp, all lights in the arena cut out. The darkness lingered long enough both to allow Batista the time needed to finish leaving, but to build up the suspense felt by the gasping audience too, with no way of telling what they were about to witness. In time, the low roar of a mechanical droning hum like the pulsing ambience of Silent Hill could be heard, and the arena filled with a deep burgundy-colored light. Smoke from a smoke machine flooded the stage, and a spotlight cut through the darkness to showcase the arrival of Trish Stratus with the Manhunter close to her side, awaiting her command. Clad in a black leather trench coat and his now iconic Manhunter mask, Trish's yet-to-be-known attack dog followed the wave of her hand toward the ring, taking it as his signal to carry on with the business at hand. What business that exactly was wouldn't be revealed on this night, but what we did find out was that the Manhunter is a dangerous threat to everyone on Monday Night Raw, and everyone should be afraid. Trish's hand remained held high as she strutted down the ramp, her new hitman following closely behind until she at last signaled for him to attack. Entering the ring on Raw for the very first time, the Manhunter knelt down over HBK and eyed him for the briefest moment before hammering down on his real-life mentor with elbows and forearm strikes ground and pound style. With each shot laid in on Shawn Michaels, the Manhunter showed no sign of emotion or mercy. He'd pulled Michaels back up to his feet and backed him into the corner behind him, propping him up against the turnbuckles and getting nasty, grinding his forearm across the forehead of Shawn to reopen his combat wounds from WrestleMania last night and draw fresh blood from them. After a few more strikes to ensure that blood had gotten on the Manhunter's gloved hands, Shawn's attacker pulled him back to the center of the ring to drop him with a devastating fireman's carry cutter, a move which the Manhunter would call the Daily Dose, and one that Jay himself would use as his finisher ever since. The Manhunter rose back up to his feet, looking to continue his mugging, not thinking one daily dose was enough for him to consider the hit finished, but Trish entered the ring and put a hand over the Manhunter's chest to get him to stand down. Trish considered whatever message this was intended to communicate to be sent, so the job was done. The Manhunter resigned, sickly wiping Shawn Michaels' blood from his gloves off onto his chest before exiting with Trish, leaving the same way they came with nothing given to answer for this. Raw went off the air after this inexplicable assault, the Manhunter having just made his impactful debut. Chapter 5, Showstopper. March 22nd, 2004, Raw, Detroit, Michigan, USA. 1 week later, we got a formal introduction to Trish Stratus' Manhunter, Shawn Michaels' attacker. Commentators JR and Jerry Lawler announced at the top of the show, amongst other matches, that the Manhunter would have one tonight, booked by Raw's own devious general manager Eric Bischoff. Meanwhile, Shawn Michaels was confirmed to be injured and recovering at home. Not long into the show, Trish Stratus was shown backstage leading her Manhunter toward the arena for his first match. Abruptly, interviewer Todd Grisham approached Trish. Trish, what was the purpose of Shawn Michaels' attack last week? And on that, what even is the identity of his attacker? Cutting her off to impose an interview on her, but the Manhunter stepped forward to punish Todd for doing so. Who knows what he would have done to him if Trish hadn't held her arm up to hold him back. Trish answered him, "Todd, you owe me your career for holding him back. All week I've gotten calls asking me why, Trish. It's simple. It's just business. I met this man in training years ago, and the instant connection we had, I just knew that by the time WWE would allow him in, I could stand to make a whole lot of money guiding him on who to attack. How could I resist having my man take out a legend like Shawn Michaels while he was down? But don't you worry about him, because he won't be around here for a long time because of my Manhunter, and it doesn't concern you or anyone else here other than me who he is. I'm the only one who needs to know. In fact, why don't we call him Shawn, spelled S-H-A-U-N because I say so, since with Shawn Michaels out maimed by my Manhunter, Raw's going to need a new showstopper. Let's go." Trish excused herself to carry on down the corridor toward gorilla position, but her Manhunter lingered, still staring down Todd Grisham as if envisioning tearing him apart until eventually relenting and leaving to catch up to his handler. The Manhunter entering the arena in Detroit, Michigan for his Raw debut match after a commercial break, he, led by Trish, entered the same way he did last week when arriving to maul Shawn Michaels. Burgundy lighting filled the arena, smoke flooded the stage, and while at first the same Silent Hill-esque pulsing ambient noise could be heard as if he himself were a monster manifesting in the fog, by the time the spotlight flashed on to shine down on Trish with her Manhunter, the noise gave way to what would be the Manhunter's first entrance song in WWE, a par for the course heavier rock, new metal-ish track called Waiting by the band Not Forgotten. As they approached, ring announcer Lillian Garcia in the ring, holding her finger up as if to an earpiece in her ear like she's only just now being fed this information, announced, "The following contest is scheduled for one fall. Introducing first, accompanied to the ring by Trish Stratus, weighing in at 235 pounds, standing at 6 feet 2 inches, from the Cascade Mountains, Shawn the Manhunter." In reality, this Manhunter character fit the rookie who was Jay Ferro perfectly. The man himself, only 19 years old still, and with a mere 2 years of pro wrestling experience, Jay needed all the aid he could get in hiding his shortcomings as a performer thus far, playing so young on such a grand stage. By design, his mask would obscure his age from the audience to come off as a bigger threat than he would otherwise. Having Trish Stratus as a manager gave him instant star power by association and kept him from needing to talk for himself until he'd become more confident to do so. His moveset as a heel could be kept safe and simple, disguised as brutal and barbaric, and with a monstrous aura, his matches can be kept short at first, portrayed as being capable of just destroying his opponents. Opponents like Rico, who entered to be the Manhunter's first sanctioned victim. Despite putting on a brave face for his lady friend Miss Jackie, Shawn ultimately made short work of the former tag team champion. Jay's moveset as heel Manhunter saw him club his opponent with elbow, knee, and forearm strikes, use slam moves that targeted the spine like neckbreakers, backbreakers, and DDTs, get dirty by gouging at Rico's eyes and hanging him from the turnbuckles with a hangman's chokehold, and slam him with a flapjack as a signature move. After 5 minutes of a brutal squash, the Manhunter entered it with his fireman's carry cutter daily dose finisher. He pinned Rico and remained threateningly over him until Trish entered to back her hitman off. Shawn the Manhunter was set for a brief run of heel monster squash matches for his first few weeks on Raw, while Shawn Michaels remained out selling his attack, defeating Lance Storm in HWA's home turf of Cincinnati, Ohio on March 29th, pulverizing Japanese buzzsaw Tajiri in Houston, Texas on April 5th, and demolishing former Too Cool member Grandmaster Sexay in Chicago on April 12th. All of these matches going pretty much the same way as the Manhunter's first victim, Rico's, did. Following the collection of the fifth head for his metaphorical spike, Shawn was joined by an unsatisfied-looking Trish in the ring who, instead of calling off her hitman as usual post-match, decided she'd rather see her Manhunter deal his opponent even more damage this time. She signaled for Shawn to continue, and he happily obliged, dealing 2 more daily doses to Sexay before bending him back into a body-scissored dragon sleeper, the real-life named Brian Christopher selling by remaining limp and motionless the entire time. Finally, Trish relented and signaled for her Manhunter to release his prey. On a mic, Trish Stratus, backed up fiercely by the Manhunter, announced, "We are growing tired of sharing space with these weaklings on the bottom rung of Raw's ladder. I didn't bring this man here as my Manhunter just to play around. I brought him here for the riches and glory both of us will achieve by beating champions and taking over all that they have. Bischoff, I thank you for granting us a spot at Backlash on Sunday to issue an open challenge, but before anyone even thinks about answering it, take a good look at Grandmaster Sexay back here. He might not wake up again, at least until tomorrow morning. I beg for whoever comes to Backlash on Sunday to face us, please be tough enough to make my Manhunter work for it. If you're not, we'll make sure it'll be your last match." April 18th, 2004, Backlash, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Backlash came, and Jay Ferro's wrestling career achieved 2 firsts. His first time performing in Canada, and his first time competing on pay-per-view. Early into the show, the Manhunter entered, led as always by Trish, and they awaited whoever would be foolish enough to come out and face them tonight. When the wait was over, entering to compete was one of Jay Ferro's teenage inspirations, Matt Hardy. Shawn the Manhunter, not sharing the same sentimentality as his real-life performer though, was just as ruthless and aggressive as ever as this match began. To Shawn's surprise, Matt Hardy proved himself to be the Manhunter's toughest opponent yet. Shawn looked hungry, like salivating at the sight of a chance to prove himself and get pushed more toward the limit than ever. Matt Hardy defended himself well and survived longer than any other Manhunter victim to date, going nearly 10 minutes. But in the end, fell victim to a flapjack and daily dose combo like all the rest. April 19th, 2004, Raw, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Raw after Backlash came from Calgary, and early on, Trish Stratus with the Manhunter backstage approached Eric Bischoff outside of his GM office. Bischoff, until now, you've decided who to send out to fall victim to us, but tonight, we decide. My Manhunter tells me he wants Matt Hardy again. Rematch. This is your warning that when my Manhunter wants something, he'll take it whether or not you schedule it. But for your sake, I suggest we let them take it to the ring. Can we make that happen? Trish proposed. I can make that happen, Bischoff answered with a grin, prompting Trish and Shawn to exit scene. After they were gone, though, Raw's GM said out loud, I wonder if I should tell them that a certain someone is back. No, they'll figure it out eventually. When time came for the Backlash rematch, Shawn and Trish entered just like they have had thus far, eagerly awaiting to meet the Manhunter's opponent of the night, who, as advertised, would be Matt Hardy, rematching against him. However, entering instead was a returning and vengeful Shawn Michaels, hitting the ring with urgency to pay back the Manhunter's debut attack. As the referee bailed out of the ring, calling off the scheduled match, the Manhunter held up well, defending himself against the initial flurry from HBK, but soon took a sweet chin music from Shawn Michaels surprisingly quickly. Shockingly, however, the Manhunter staggered but was not taken off his feet by Michaels' super kick finisher. HBK lunged to deliver a second one, but Manhunter dodged the kick this time and instead lifted Shawn Michaels up onto his shoulders to strike with a daily dose. This time it was HBK who evaded damage, wiggling out of the Manhunter's grip to drop back down to the mat and roll out to his feet on the floor. Shawn Michaels, likely still processing the fact that the Manhunter absorbed his sweet chin music relatively unfazed, decided that the best course of action for now would be to back away, re-strategize, and live to fight another day. The Manhunter, likewise in response to this stalemate, allowed Michaels the chance to retreat. They are far from done, however. April 26, 2004, Raw, Topeka, Kansas, USA. The following week, Raw was set to see Shawn Michaels and Shawn the Manhunter meet in the ring for a match for the first time at last, these two enemies ready to face each other officially, or so we were told. In reality, Trish and the Manhunter instead seemed to have spent the past 7 days devising another plan to ensure that they could keep the biggest threat to their operation down. Trish and the Manhunter entered late into this episode of Raw, waiting in the ring as always for their opponent of the week to arrive, announced and scheduled to be Shawn Michaels. However, like last week, the match would never start, as when HBK entered and struck his pose on the entrance ramp, he was clubbed and attacked from behind. Lo and behold, the new man standing over a blindsided Michaels was a second man wearing a Manhunter mask. Blonde hair showed on the head of the second Manhunter to differentiate him from the lavender-haired Shawn, but aside from that, the two masked Manhunters looked as close to identical as possible. The real-life man debuting as the second Manhunter was Cody Hawk, Jay Ferro's HWA rival from 2003, whom he later teamed with on WWE house shows just a couple of months ago prior to his Raw debut. WWE ended up deciding to bring him onto Raw too, at least for a short run that would see him continuing his run of work with Jay Ferro by teaming with him as a Manhunter under Trish. Shawn and Trish left the ring to join the new Manhunter in ganging up to assault Shawn Michaels, further incapacitating him 2-on-1. Capping off Trish's premeditated ambush was Shawn delivering a daily dose to the Heartbreak Kid straight onto the steel of the entrance ramp. Satisfied after that, Stratus gestured for both Manhunters now to follow her in leaving the arena for the night. No explanation or identity was able to be obtained for the appearance of Trish's second Manhunter on this night, as that would come the following week from Raw in Phoenix on May 3rd. Todd Grisham being granted interview time with Trish Stratus this week as opposed to imposing one on her. The scene felt a little less tense as no harm was threatened toward the interviewer this time. About 6 weeks ago, Trish introduced her Manhunter Shawn, and now Todd was looking to ascertain the identity and purpose of adding a second Manhunter to her assumed employ. Upon confirmation that Shawn Michaels this week was having difficulty obtaining medical clearance again after last Monday's 2-on-1 attack, Stratus, backed up closely by the twin Manhunters, enlightened Todd on the motives of her actions. Todd, you've already met Shawn, my undefeated, money-making beast of a man who won't let anything stop him. Shawn Michaels returning 2 weeks ago, though, so soon after we left him a bloody pulp in the ring, took us by surprise, so I knew I had to do something to ensure my assets were protected. Turns out, Shawn had a friend, let's call him Chad, and they go back many years together. Trained together, fought together, bled together. I knew that bringing him in to join my deal with Shawn could double what I'm making off of him alone, and the barbaric bond between them driving them to protect each other from threats is just the insurance I need to know my investments are safe. Shawn Michaels had enough trouble facing Shawn the Manhunter when it was just him on his own, but now that the one man who can match his crazed ruthlessness is here with him too, consider this a warning that if Shawn Michaels tries to come at us again, medical clearance will be the last thing he has to worry about. If he's not here and he's not cleared, then we are clear to do what we do best. We're going to go out to that ring, we're going to tear apart whichever prey Eric Bischoff sends our way, and then we're going to collect the bounty for our work. Rinse and repeat until all fall at the Manhunter's feet. Out to the ring with Trish and the Manhunters awaiting tonight's opponents, it was the tag team of Rosie and the Hurricane entering to face Trish's masked hitmen. The same Manhunter squash match formula applied here, now in tag team form, the size of big man Rosie providing a first-time challenge for the heels, but Shawn and Chad used their agility advantage to keep the Samoan off balance. Focusing their offense instead on isolating and beating down the smaller Hurricane, a daily dose from Shawn finished him off like the rest of the Manhunter's victims. After Trish's blessing to make an example out of their first tag team prey, The Manhunters' post-match beatdown was heroically interrupted by the surprise appearance of Shawn Michaels. HBK stormed the ring with a hulked-up energy, grabbing each of the Manhunters and tossing them over the ropes to the floor outside the ring, doing his flexing pose center stage once all on his own, except for Trish Stratus, still petrified in shock in the corner, that was. When Michaels noticed the company he had, he couldn't let the villain go without justice, gender be damned. He lunged toward Trish to deliver sweet chin music against the heel orchestrating his suffering for the past 2 months, but saving her just in time were the Manhunters, who, from the outside, grabbed her ankles to pull her down and out under the ropes to the safety of the outside. Too shaken from the near knockout to pursue an attack any further, Trish backed her Manhunters off in a retreat up the entrance ramp. Michaels accepted their surrender tonight, not pursuing either, simply continuing to shout at them from the ring, promising further payment to come. May 10th, 2004, Raw, San Jose, California, USA. On this episode of Raw from San Jose, California, Jay Ferro had his very first Raw main event. From the start of the show, WWE advertised Shawn Michaels versus Shawn the Manhunter to be the closer of the night, Showstopper versus future Showstopper. Last time this match was advertised, the debut of Chad the Manhunter threw the contest out the window. Now though, this time we had a match. And a match we had. Jay Ferro as the Manhunter impressed against the living legend, their chemistry from their few months as student and mentor in late 2002 showing as Trish's hitman put on his best match to date. This match saw the Manhunter add a new signature move to his repertoire, that being a knee facebuster, a running leap into the air to grab the head of his opponent and force it down onto his upright knee by the time they land. Despite the Manhunter's best effort though, the far superior Michaels at this point in their careers got this match going his way toward the end, coming up on the 10-minute mark when he would have his recent nemesis down and took position in the corner to tune up the band. Not liking where this was going and having the means of an easy out for her hitman, Trish Stratus commanded Chad at ringside with her to interfere. From behind, Chad assaulted Shawn Michaels, the referee calling for this main event to end by disqualification. Trish's insurance policy helped her main man back up, and together as twin Manhunters they towered over the Heartbreak Kid. Despite the 2-on-1 attack though, HBK was able to fight back and end up with the upper hand, nailing both Manhunters with sweet chin musics. This time, more fatigued from the tough match he just had against the legend, Shawn the Manhunter was toppled by Shawn Michaels' superkick. The Heartbreak Kid stood tall over the Manhunters to end Raw with a heroic triumph. May 17th, 2004, Raw, San Diego, California, USA. The following Raw, Shawn the Manhunter was absent for the first time since his debut, along with Trish and Chad too. All of the Manhunter group were sold as being away, either to strategize together a new game plan after their attempted assault last week on Shawn Michaels didn't go as planned, or to hide their shame and embarrassment from their attempted assault last week on Shawn Michaels not going as planned, depending on the biases of the source. May 24th, 2004, Raw, Rockford, Illinois, USA. 2 weeks after Shawn Michaels took a disqualification win and turned around the latest attempted beatdown from the Manhunters back onto them, Eric Bischoff's storyline nephew Eugene was being interviewed backstage. Ending his promo hyped up for his match to come tonight, the storyline special needs man spun around and bumped straight into the wall of both Shawn and Chad Manhunter standing behind him. The camera panning up to center on their masked faces, silent and unmoving, the Manhunters towered over Eugene, who could only whimper and tremble pathetically, cowering in fear from the monstrous men. Before too long, though, Trish emerged ahead of her associates and urged them to come on. They had business with Bischoff to attend to, but if there's time later, they could play around and make new friends. A little later, we saw the wrapping up of said business, with the cameras catching Eric Bischoff and Trish Stratus shaking hands, her Manhunters and Bischoff's assistant Jonathan Coachman also present and seen. What the meeting exactly was about never was shown, but that was irrelevant. All that mattered here was that after Raw's GM went back into his office, Jonathan Coachman proposed that Trish have her Manhunters target Eugene tonight. The coach discriminately wanted Eugene gone off of Raw, so if the Manhunters could scare Bischoff's nephew into quitting himself, Coachman would have a cash bonus in it for Trish and her men. Trish, with an accepting grin but no verbal answer, led her manhunters in exiting the scene. Later on, Eugene competed in his match tonight against Garrison Cade, but his composure was still visibly rocked, not fully recovered mentally from bumping into the manhunters earlier. This unfocused state of mind led to him tripping up and getting rolled up and pinned by Cade, but afterward, Eugene's fears were made manifest when the manhunters entered the arena, without Trish Stratus out there to lead them. Sean and Chad reached the ring to antagonize Eugene, backing the special needs man into a corner and slowly closing in on him at a torturous pace, terrorizing him into crying. Seeing enough of the heartless bullying was Shawn Michaels running in to make the heroic save. HBK once again hulked up, roughed up the manhunters a bit, overwhelming them with a flurry of offense that drove them into a retreat from the ring. Trish Stratus stepped out from backstage to meet her manhunters at the top of the entrance ramp, guiding them in their exit. Meanwhile, in the ring, Michaels tended to Eugene, comforting him and promising that the manhunters were gone now. May 31st, 2004, Raw, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. The Manhunters' targeting of Eugene and Shawn Michaels' heroic save led to a tag team match being booked for the main event of the following episode of Raw, live from Montreal on May 31st. By the Showstopper's side, Eugene was able to find the courage to face the Manhunters who bullied him the previous week. With the living legend Shawn Michaels backing him up, Eugene stood a chance at fighting back against Trish's monstrous masked men. However, when the time came to put up or shut up, the mismatched nature of the Heartbreak Kid teaming with the special needs Eugene gave way to obvious moments of disjointed, uncoordinated teamwork. The Manhunters, led and directed by Trish Stratus, operated like a hive mind in comparison, isolating Eugene to focus their punishment on him and keeping Michaels out altogether. A moment of hope saw HBK get the hot tag in toward the end, but Sean and Chad survived the Showstopper's best shots. A moment of error from Eugene when things began looking bad for the Showstopper, however, led to the end of the night for the babyface team. Chad backed Shawn Michaels into his team's corner with a shoulder charge, and Eugene tagged himself in off of HBK's back. While Eugene stood petrified for a moment on the apron, hesitant to charge back in against the malicious Manhunters, Chad pulled Michaels back out of the corner and slammed him with a signature Manhunter flapjack, ejecting him from the ring afterward. By the time Eugene mustered up the courage to step back in the ring against the villains, as psyched up and heroic as he could possibly be, Chad had tagged back out to Sean, who met Eugene in the middle of the ring and dropped him with a daily dose for the pinfall win. Victorious for the first time in a Raw main event, the Manhunters and Trish Stratus had reason for celebration as WWE drew within 2 weeks of their Bad Blood pay-per-view. June 7th, 2004, Raw, Albany, New York, USA. On the last Raw before WWE's Bad Blood, Shawn Michaels took a final stand against Trish and her Manhunters in Albany, New York. Taking to the ring toward the end of the night, HBK demanded that this come to an end, issuing a challenge. At this point, I don't care what started all of this, personal or not. The Manhunters are a menace in my locker room, and like weeds, I will rip them out. Bad Blood, I don't care if I have to do this 1-on-1, 2-on-1, or 3-on-1, but I will make sure there's a steel cage on hand Sunday night, and anyone who wants a piece is welcome to join me. This is a responsibility I take on willingly to restore peace backstage, not just for myself, but for the Eugenes of the locker room too, or I will die trying. Answering the call out was Sean with Trish Stratus, stepping out on stage and approaching the ring toward HBK, who was waiting and ready for a fight. Hidden underneath the darkness of the Manhunter's burgundy lighting and blaring entrance music, though, was Chad the Manhunter, successfully ambushing Michaels from behind after stalking in from the Timekeeper's area. Ganging up on Shawn Michaels for a 2-on-1 mugging yet again, the Manhunters were soon halted this time by the sounding of one of the most surprising entrance themes possible. Time to play the game! Fans popping huge. Out of all the people who could have lent a hand to Shawn Michaels tonight, it was none other than Triple H running in. Having failed to regain the World Heavyweight Championship, he lost to Chris Benoit at WrestleMania, and with the rest of his Evolution faction occupied in their own business for now, the game felt fit to aid his old DX partner against the Manhunters assaulting him. Without taking a hit, Triple H fought the Manhunters off of the Heartbreak Kid and threw them out of the ring. Trish Stratus would regroup with Shawn and Chad and back them off up the entrance ramp, having to hold her manhunters back as the game gave Shawn Michaels a hand back up. Together, standing tall, Triple H and HBK crotch-chopped at the heels, gesturing for the rookie manhunters to suck it. DX reuniting for 1 week only from the Cerebral Assassin's rescue of the Showstopper, a match was set for Bad Blood on Sunday. Two of Raw's biggest main eventers would take on the youngest monsters on Monday nights, Shawn and Chad Manhunter, DX versus Trish's Hitmen inside a steel cage. June 13th, 2004, Bad Blood, Columbus, Ohio, USA. As the second pay-per-view event of Jay Ferro's WWE career began, the young man from Washington State was ready for his debut story arc as Trish Stratus' Manhunter to come to a close. Shawn Michaels and Triple H had other main event business to move on to. Trish Stratus behind the scenes had been sharpening up for a return to the ring of her own, and WWE's creative team had several paths in mind for the future of the Manhunter, which one they'd pursue being determined following the tag team cage match tonight. The last match on before the night's main event, the Manhunters entered, led out as always by Trish. Entering the cage for the biggest match yet of their rookie careers, Shawn and Chad stoically waited for DX to face them, for the cage to lock them in, and for the carnage to begin. Beneath their cold killer exteriors, though, seeing the eyes of Shawn and Chad through their Manhunter masks conveyed just how eager and hungry they were to orchestrate their violence in the ring. As it happened, though, despite the Manhunters putting on the best fight they possibly could against WWE's biggest faction of the Attitude Era, it was clear from early on that the balance of power had plenty of weight behind Triple H and HBK, Raw's main eventers. Trish Stratus kept locked out of the cage. She lit up the most and came alive to cheer on her men when they came the closest they would to winning. Chad the Manhunter stunning Triple H with an uppercut, while Shawn the Manhunter flapjack slammed Shawn Michaels against the cage wall before dropping him with a daily dose in the middle of the ring. The Cerebral Assassin, however, recovered in time to break up the pin and fight Shawn off of Shawn. A few minutes later, when it came time to bring this to a close, after DX somewhat easily turned the tides of this match back against the Manhunters for the last time, Shawn Michaels threw his tormentor of the last few months' worth of Monday nights out over the top rope and against the cage wall, the burning one grating against the steel as he slid down to the apron. After the OG Manhunter pulled himself back up in the tight space between the ring ropes and the cage wall, the Heartbreak Kid, Jay Ferro's real-life mentor and childhood hero, put down Trish's masked attack dog with 3 consecutive sweet chin musics against the steel cage. With the Showstopper's retribution delivered, Triple H pedigreed Chad the Manhunter in the middle of the ring to score the win for DX. After they left victorious and the cage rose to release the Manhunters, Trish Stratus collected the body of Shawn only, her original Manhunter, leaving behind Chad to come back to and exit on his own. Realizing his abandonment, Chad sat up alone in the ring and removed his Manhunter mask, tossing it frustratedly aside as he left Columbus's nationwide arena barefaced, a signal meant to say that his time playing the role of the second Manhunter was done. June 14th, 2004 to June 27th, 2004. In the aftermath of Bad Blood's steel cage match, Jay Ferro nursed wounds, both in the Manhunter's storyline as well as his real self getting time off to heal from bumps and bruises. After the first 3 months of his rookie WWE career, Jay Ferro was still relatively green, uncalloused, and inessential to WWE's production, so he was given time off to rest and recover while Raw's producers and creative staff decided on what's next for the Manhunter. As mentioned, with everyone else involved with the Manhunter moving on to other things after Bad Blood, it was guaranteed that when the Burning One did return, it would be for something entirely new. Enemies Shawn Michaels and Triple H reverted to their original heel-face alignments and turned on each other again. Manager Trish Stratus won back the Women's Championship from Victoria for a 5th reign, and Cody Hawk unmasked from being Chad the Manhunter and was returned to HWA to continue his career there. 2 weeks passed as Jay Ferro recuperated while visiting and catching up with family back home in Washington State. Before he knew it, though, WWE was ready and called for him to return to Monday Night Raw, June 28, 2004. Fan hype and critical reception for Raw's young Manhunter were starting to really catch on. So now that the masked monster has been fully unleashed by Trish Stratus upon the Red Brand's roster, becoming a title contender could only be just the next first step for Jay Ferro's rising wrestling career.